7 syllables. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about diplomacy, you think about, treaties, long negotiation.
Right, very formal, very slow. But this was not that. It was the complete opposite, a moment that just punctured the whole balloon of diplomatic protocol.
It was raw, unscripted, and probably the first, truly viral moment in global politics.
Absolutely.
We are, of course, talking about ¿Por qué no te callas?
Or, for everyone listening, why don't you shut up?
I mean, it's just so direct. And coming from a king, it's shocking.
Completely.
So today we're doing a deep dive into that incident. We're going back to November 10th, 2007, the Ibero-American Summit in Santiago, Chile.
And we should probably set the scene because Ibero-American Summit sounds a little dry.
It does.
Think of it like a big family reunion for the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking world. You've got Spain, Portugal, and all their former colonies from Latin America.
And like any family reunion, there's always baggage, there's history, and, there's always that one uncle who just won't stop talking.
Right. And in this story, the players are almost perfect archetypes. You have King Juan Carlos I of Spain, the old world monarch.
Okay.
Then you have Hugo Chavez, the president of Venezuela, who's this fiery face of 21st century socialism.
And stuck right in the middle.
The prime minister of Spain, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, just trying to keep the peace.
So our mission today is to unpack not just the outburst, but the collision that caused it. We've got reports from the BBC, El País. We've even got some linguistic analyses. Because this wasn't just a rude comment.
No, it was a flashpoint for, all this post-colonial tension. And it ended up generating millions of euros in ringtone sales.
Which is still one of the most absurd parts of this whole story. But let's start in the room. These summits are normally so choreographed, so boring. Why was this one different?
Well, the pressure was already building. This wasn't just a sudden snap. Throughout the whole summit, Hugo Chavez had been interrupting the Spanish Prime Minister Zapatero over and over again.
And he wasn't just, interrupting. He was launching a full-on verbal assault.
He was. Specifically, he was attacking Zapatero's predecessor, José María Aznar.
Right, the conservative prime minister before him.
Exactly. And Chavez hated him. He kept calling Aznar a fascist.
The transcript is wild. He says Aznar was less human than snakes.
That's the quote. Less human than snakes.
Yeah.
He was accusing Aznar of supporting a failed coup against him back in 2002. So for Chavez, this isn't just politics.
It's personal.
It's existential.
Okay, but here's the part that's so interesting to me. Zapatero, the guy Chavez is interrupting, is a socialist. He and Aznar were bitter political rivals back in Spain.
Total opposites. They had completely different visions for the country.
Exactly. So you'd think Zapatero would just, sit back and enjoy the show, let his rival get torn apart. But he doesn't. He steps in. Why?
And that's such a crucial point. It's about statecraft. Zapatero knew that if he let a foreign leader delegitimize his predecessor, he was letting him delegitimize the entire Spanish democratic process.
So it wasn't about defending Aznar the person.
Not at all. It was about defending the institutions of Spain. He stood up and said Aznar was a legitimate representative of the Spanish people. He was drawing a line.
But Chavez just kept pushing.
He did. And there was another layer here. Earlier, Zapatero had kind of annoyed Chavez by suggesting Latin America needed foreign investment to fight poverty.
Basically saying Chavez's policies were scaring investors away.
Right in front of all his peers. So the room is already tense. Zapatero is trying to speak. Chavez is shouting over him. The organizers actually cut Chavez's microphone.
Which should have been the end of it.
He just kept shouting without a mic. It was just chaos. And King Juan Carlos is sitting right there watching this whole thing unfold, and he hits his breaking point.
He's right next to Zapatero. He leans forward, turns directly to Chavez, and says the line.
¿Por qué no te callas?
You just have to absorb the gravity of that. Kings don't do this.
They never do this. They're trained their whole lives to be symbols, to stay above the political fray. For a monarch to just verbally smack down a head of state like that, it was totally unprecedented.
Let's dig into the linguistics, because you mentioned the grammar here was a big part of the insult.
It's huge. It's not just that it was informal. In Spanish, you have the formal usted and the familiar tú.
Like for friends or family.
Or for children.
Yeah.
And that's the sting. For a former colonial power, Spain, to address a Latin American leader with tú, it carries all this historical weight. It can sound like a parent scolding a child.
So it wasn't just rude. It was seen as sort of imperial. Paternalistic.
Exactly. It fed right into Chavez's whole narrative about Spanish arrogance. That one little syllable, te, instead of le, changed everything.
It's amazing how much a single pronoun can carry. And the drama wasn't even over.
No. A little while later, the Nicaraguan president, Daniel Ortega, gets up and starts criticizing Spain, too. And at that point, the king just stands up and walks out.
He just leaves.
Yeah.
That's the diplomatic equivalent of flipping the table over.
It was. The press called it an annus horribilis, a horrible year for the royal family's image. It just shattered that calm, stoic facade.
Okay, so the summit ends. Everyone goes home. For Chavez, this must feel like a gift. He loves a fight with an imperialist power.
Oh, he goes on the offensive immediately. He starts questioning the king's democratic legitimacy, reminding everyone Juan Carlos was technically appointed by the dictator Franco.
Wow, poking at a very sore spot in Spanish history.
A very sore spot. And he doubles down on the empire talk, demands an apology. He says the Spanish Empire slit our people's throats. He frames himself as the voice of the resistance against the crown.
And he threatened their wallets, too.
And he did. He threatened to review the status of huge Spanish companies in Venezuela, like the banks Banco Santander and BBVA. That sent a real chill through the markets.
So it's a full-blown crisis. The king looks impulsive.
Yeah.
Chavez is threatening to nationalize banks. And the media is asking who comes out of this looking worse.
Right. The Los Angeles Times said it was a toss-up between Chavez's boorish lack of etiquette and the king's meltdown.
But while all the diplomats are freaking out, something else is happening. The public. They're not analyzing colonial dynamics. They're laughing.
And that brings us to the most incredible part of the story, the viral explosion.
I love the anecdote about Zapatero getting home.
It's perfect. He walks through the door after this incredibly stressful summit, and his eldest daughter just looks at him and says, "¿Por qué no te calas?"
And they both just burst out laughing.
That's the moment it shifts from a crisis to a cultural phenomenon.
Let's talk about the ringtone economy, because this was, what, 2007? This is peak Crazy Frog era.
It was. But this was on a whole other level. In Spain alone, an estimated 500,000 people downloaded the phrase as their ringtone.
500,000. People paid money to have the King of Spain tell them to shut up every time someone called.
Yep. And just in the first few weeks, it generated about 1.5 million euros. That's around $2 million US at the time.
That's staggering. Who gets the royalties for a royal insult?
Mostly the mobile companies. To get around any legal issues, a lot of them hired actors to do an impression of the king's voice.
And it went beyond phones.
Oh, yeah. T-shirts, coffee mugs, endless YouTube remixes. The domain name porcanotales.com sold for thousands of dollars on eBay.
I saw a note about a Nike parody ad.
Yeah, with the soccer player Ronaldinho. The slogan was, "Juan, do it. Just shut up."
Juan, do it. That's awful. I love it.
It's so bad, it's good. But in Venezuela, the opposition got serious. They were fighting a referendum Chavez was pushing, and they turned the phrase into a protest slogan. They capitalized the "no porque no te calas" to mean vote no.
So the king accidentally wrote their campaign slogan.
In a way, yeah. But here's the thing. We remember this as a funny meme. But for someone like Hugo Chavez, being laughed at is dangerous.
More dangerous than being hated.
Much more. Strong men run on fear and respect. You can't command fear when you're a punchline. And if you look at the timeline, this incident kicked off a truly disastrous month for him.
Okay, this is the ripple effect. It seems like the king's outburst sort of gave other leaders permission to push back.
It broke the spell. A week later, they're at an OPEC summit in Riyadh. This should be Chavez's home turf.
Right, oil politics. That's his thing.
He gets up and gives his standard speech about using oil as a geopolitical weapon against the West. Usually people just nod. But this time, King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, the most powerful guy in the room, publicly rebukes him.
Shoves him down.
Tells him basically that oil is for development, not conflict. And the press immediately connected it to what happened in Chile. The narrative became, Chavez is the guy who gets scolded by kings.
He's gone from revolutionary to a nuisance.
Exactly, and that loss of respect snowballs. Which brings us to the bathroom incident.
From the Reuters report.
Yes. At that same summit, he's surrounded by reporters, and he says he needs to pee. But then he asks them if they want him to pee on them.
That is not a sign of someone who feels in control.
Not at all. It just showed him unraveling. And then came the real diplomatic hits.
This is about the FARC guerrillas in Colombia.
Right. For years, Chavez had positioned himself as the essential mediator, the only one who could broker peace. It was his biggest source of international leverage.
He held the keys to peace in the region.
And right after the summit, Colombia's president, Álvaro Uribe, fires him. just cuts him out completely.
Wow.
Says he was bypassing diplomatic channels, the same kind of behavior from Santiago, and suddenly he loses his status as the region's great peacemaker.
It's incredible. It's like the king just pulled one loose thread and Chavez's whole sweater started to come undone.
It really was a turning point. It's the moment his very confrontational, very loud style of diplomacy just slammed into a wall.
So before we wrap up, let's talk about the legacy. The phrase didn't just fade away.
Not at all. I mean, years later, 2010 World Cup, you see fans with scarves that say it. It became this universal shorthand.
And the academics loved it, I'm sure.
Oh, of course, there are papers on it. But my favorite detail is the punctuation debate.
There was a punctuation debate.
There was. The Urgent Spanish Foundation and the Chilean Academy of Language actually issued guidance on how to write it.
Okay, I have to know. Question marks or exclamation points?
They argued that given the force of the delivery, it's not really a question, it's a command, so it should be written with exclamation points. ¿Por qué no te callas?
A command disguised as a question.
Exactly. Or, for the real grammar nerds, they said you could use an interrobang, a mix of both.
I love that. Language Academy is debating the grammar of a royal outburst.
It shows how deep it went.
So when we zoom out, why does this moment still resonate? Why are we still talking about it?
I think it's because it was a moment where the mask of diplomacy just completely slipped. All those tensions, the colonial history, the ideological fights, the sheer personality clashes, it all just burst through in real time.
A glitch in the matrix of international relations.
Totally. And it also showed us the future. It showed how fast a political gaffe can become a commercial product. From a crisis to a ringtone in, 24 hours.
It was the pivot point from the TV news era to the viral meme era.
Exactly. It taught a whole generation of leaders that your most unguarded moment is the one you'll be remembered for.
Well, we've covered the insults, the linguistics, the money, the fallout, but I want to leave you with one last thought.
Go for it.
I read a commentary in the Washington Post at the time that really stuck with me. It suggested that in this age of constant political noise and shouting, maybe the king asked the wrong question.
How so?
Instead of turning to the one loud guy and asking, "Why don't you shut up?" Maybe he should have turned to all the other leaders sitting there in silence and asked them, "Why don't you speak up?"
That's a powerful thought. The silence of the moderates can be just as deafening as the shouting from the extremes.
Something for you to think about. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.